and welcome to healthyhouseplants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. If you'd like to support our show, please use our Amazon affiliate link below. Today we are embarking on a Maidenhair Fern revival. This Maidenhair Fern was given to me to revive. Sadly, it doesn't look all that great, but I am glad to have it so that I can walk through the revival with you. We're going to do a bunch of stuff today, and then we'll check back in with it at a later time to see how it's doing. Okay, so this, it wasn't getting enough humidity from what I can tell and from what I heard, and also was drought stressed a little bit too, so you may find that your Maidenhair Fern kind of looks like this at some point, so you can revive it. First things first, I'm going to remove dead and dying fronds, and then I am going to repot it and provide it with some humidity. So starting with the pruning, which always makes it look a lot better as well. I'm going to get these dead fronds out of here, cutting at the base. And sometimes if they're dead enough, they'll just come out when you tug on them slightly too, but you don't want to do that too much because you could pull up good fronds, and obviously this plant needs all the fronds it can get, right? So here I am going to finish with this part, and then we will take it out of its pot because also it hasn't been repotted from when it was bought, I've been told as well. Oops. Took out a good frond, so this, like I said, be careful with that. Although, nice thing about this is I can use this for pressing. I do have videos on pressing foliage and flowers from your house plants, which I will link below, as well as any other videos that I mentioned in this video that would help you with your Maidenhair Fern as well. So I'm going to set that aside for pressing and try not to do that again. So it's best really to follow the frond down with your fingers as much as you can and really check it out before you take it out, because it can definitely be a little confusing sometimes when you start this, because you can think you've got one and then you cut off the wrong one, like what happened. Okay. You want to get this dead foliage out not only because it looks yucky, but also because it will attract pests and diseases. That's what dead and dying foliage does, and that's what it's actually meant to do. Out in nature, dead and dying foliage will not only feed other houseplants as it decomposes, but it will also attract insects. It gives insects their food and such. So, but indoors, obviously, that's not something you're going to want to encourage. Now, another reason too why I'm pruning off these fronds is it's going to show me how much I have up top, so I know what size pot to put the plant in. Because when a plant has been compromised like this, and it uses a lot of that loses its upper foliage, you need to make sure that you don't put it in too big of a pot, because when you don't have enough plant up top and you have too big of a pot, it can lead to root rot, because there's not enough plant up top to soak up the water in that soil. So this is another reason why I like to do this before choosing the pot. I did bring some pot sizes, a couple pot sizes here, thinking that it will go into one of those, which are smaller ones, as you will see. I do have a video on why when you prune up top, it can lead to root rot. I will link that below as well to explain a little bit more of what I just mentioned there. Oops, So like I said, I think we're okay. Okay, so yeah, another one, unfortunately, down. Okay, so going to stop there. As you can see, it looks a lot better, but we do have a ways to go for this plant to revive. Okay, now going to take out take it out of its pot and examine the roots. All right, so you can see when you kind of want to get a good idea of roots on a plant, just kind of tapping it to kind of knock off soil to see what you end up with. You still want to stick with the 2/3 plant up top to 1/3 pot below ratio. And like I said, we have cleaned this up. This is a lot that came off of the plant here, and including those 2 fronds, wayward fronds that did end up off. Now, not knowing if this was also maybe a fertilizer burn too, which I'm not sure of, if they use chemical fertilizers, which will always also lead to problems with fronds. This frond is a little compromised. I'm going to cut it back to a part there as well. There could be a buildup of chemical fertilizer in the soil as well. So it's fairly gently just tapping as you go and turn it around to get to loosen the soil. Not necessarily a good thing with these plants because they are delicate to rinse it all off the soil off, unless you suspect it's something like root rot, but I definitely don't with this plant. It's more of an underwatering and not enough humidity problem. Okay, so I've got it down to a much smaller root ball, as you can see. Now I'm going to check out, okay, this pot, a little too small. Thinking this may be the pot. Yes. Okay, so this pot's perfect. And you can see it is smaller than this other pot. Not by a lot, but enough to make up the difference of the soil that was taken off and the foliage that was taken off up top. Because besides having the 2/3 plant to 1/3 pot combination, you also want 2/3 root to 1/3 soil in the pot. And you can see here, give you a close-up view here more. We've got about that ratio in here. I'm going to be able to add quite a nice amount of soil around the sides and on the bottom here, but not so much that it's going to be so wet in there, which is what we want to avoid. Because even though maidenhair ferns do like to be on the moist side, they don't necessarily, like any plant, like any house plant, they can be killed by too moist soil too often. Like, they do need to dry out some. Okay, I have some soil here that this is ProMix BX. I'll link it below, which I use for a lot of things. Most of my house plants, except for succulents, I use the succulent mix that I make. I do have a video too on making your own mix, which I will use as well. Okay, so this right here is ProMix BX. It's also has some added worm compost, and it has my green gourmet houseplant food in it as well. So I'm really taking out all of the tools that I have here to get this plant to become healthier. Okay, so now I'm looking at this here. You can see that we do have a good root system. It looks healthy. There's no squishy black roots. They are darker roots. If you look more, if you would take off some of that soil, they are on the dark brown side, which is good. I'm going to loosen it up just a little bit more, take off just a little bit more, so you can squeeze a little and then tap like I'm doing, and take off just a little bit more soil because I want to get more fresh soil in here, as mentioned, not knowing what has been put into this soil. Those chemical fertilizers will stay in the pot, stay in the soil, and can just continue to cause problems like this browning. It could be from that. One thing I'm not sure what they're fertilizing with. Okay, so now I've got it down more. That way I'm going to be able to add more fresh soil in here. Okay, so this pot was cleaned up prior, and not too concerned about this soil, not considering that it's bad necessarily, but put that there to get out of the way. So you want, if you were doing something like root rot, you would want to clean the soil off much better. But it looks healthy. It just looks like the care wasn't optimum for the plant. Okay, so I put a little bit of soil on the bottom. I'm going to snug it in here, make sure that it's going to when I put the rest of the soil in, it's going to set down just a little bit, so when I water, it'll be okay. It looks like it will be. You don't necessarily have to have a ton of soil on the bottom of the pot, and actually, if you're putting a lot of soil into the bottom of the pot to make the plant fit into the pot correctly, it's way too big of a pot. Okay, so there's that. Now I'm going to add to the sides, and you'll see as I do this that we're going to add quite a bit of soil, new soil to this plant. So it's not like just because it's a small pot, it's not like it's not going to get a lot of new soil, but it will be a lot better for this plant to not be in too big of a pot. Okay, so adding more still. And it is okay for this is the crown of the plant. The crown is the part that's just above the soil where the roots meet the top of the plant. It's okay. It's actually it is good with the Maidenhair Fern to have it up just a little bit, that crown up a little bit. Actually, most houseplants, you want the crown up just above the soil. Make sure you don't bury that crown because you can end up with crown rot where the crown rots, and when the crown rots, the roots fall off, the top of the plant is affected, and you no longer have a plant. Okay, so got that in there well, pushed it down just a little bit all the way along the inside of the rim so that when I water, the water will stay in rather than flow over. Okay, now you can see this plant is already looking better than it did before we started, right? Okay. So I'm going to clean off this a bit here, and then pan out a little bit. Okay, now what I've prepared here is a humidity tray. So you will see in here, I'll go closer again for you. You'll see in here I've got some really pretty marbles. They're flat marbles, which work really well for humidity trays. I've also put some water in there, so the water is lying just below the marbles in there. That is going to help humidify the plant. It's also a very pretty one here with the little legs on it. So Maidenhair Ferns are divas. They do like to look pretty. So I'm going to set this pot in there. And so now the plant is going to get that extra humidity in there as well, which is really, really important because, as I mentioned, this plant, from what I could tell, was not getting enough humidity. So I will continue to make sure that there is water at the bottom of the humidity tray to continue to humidify this beautiful plant and revive her. I am also going to begin misting her a few times a day. That will simulate her natural environment, which is very humid, and that's going to help her. So there you go with that. So lots of humidity. I'm also going to put her near some other plants so that she gets the humidity. As I've mentioned in many of my videos, the plants humidify each other because they transpire, which is when they transpire, they emit humidity. So they will, her buddies will help humidify her and help her revive as well. She's got the new soil with the worm compost, really good soil, and my Green Gourmet houseplant food, which has all kinds of goodies in it, like alfalfa meal, which is a natural growth hormone, and it's got mycorrhizae, which will help her grow as well too. So there you go with that. And then that is about it for making her happy and healthy. Oh, except for one really important thing, I need to water her right now. I did water her prior to several hours prior to potting up, which you always want to do. And then now I'm going to water her really well right now, so that she's nice and moist. You always want to water houseplants after you repot them, and then you wait until they need watering again after that. Since Maidenhair Ferns like to be kept on the moist side, I will water her when she gets to the 5-ish on the moisture meter, rather than the 4, which I suggest for a lot of other houseplants, but you don't want this girl to get dry, especially after we're reviving her. But as I mentioned, not overly wet as well. Now, one good thing about having the the plant sitting on the pebble trays, on the humidity trays, is that when you water, a little bit will go down in there too, and it keeps the bottom of the plant from sitting in water, and it also does double duty of adding some water to your pebble tray so that it continues to humidify the air surrounding the plant. Okay, so I'm going to check that now and make sure that there is no water sitting above above those marbles, and there isn't. You can also use gravel, pebbles as mentioned as well. Okay, so here we go with this beautiful plant. We are going to, as mentioned, check back in with her at a later time, see how she's faring. We will look at what I'll be looking for in terms of knowing that she's doing a lot better is new growth coming from the crown of the plant. So new little fronds coming up, and even little baby ones that then turn into bigger ones at a point as it grows is a good sign. So that's how you can revive your maidenhair fern and make your fern a lot happier and a lot healthier looking. There's still a few leaves on here that I can carefully, as I mentioned, so you don't lose lose too many good fronds, although that will happen. There's a few leaves on there that I can take. I probably take off a few more little ones, but being very careful so I don't lose any more good fronds as mentioned. But you will, if you lose a couple like I did, that's okay. You're putting the plant into new soil, you're now going to treat it with more humidity and make sure you water correctly, and that is going to spur, anytime you repot a plant, that spurs it, kind of shocks it a little bit and spurs it into regrowth mode. You don't want to do this during winter months, but most of the rest of the year, it's okay to do. I am in Southern California right now. I am in summertime, so it's fine. She will have a chance to acclimate to her new pot and start growing some new fronds before it's going to be a while here before it gets cold. And it doesn't get as cold as some areas, but just be cognizant of that too in terms of timing, and you will be doing really well with your maidenhair fern if you do that. Now, another thing too, so say she needs to be repotted, you can do that, increasing the humidity, cutting out the fronds, and making sure that she's well watered while you're waiting until it's the right time to repot as well, depending on the time of year for you. So there you go, this beauty on our journey of revival. And we'll see you next time when she is looking even better. Thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And please check the bell if you'd like to be notified when new videos are released.